Good afternoon, fellow Toastmasters and guests, both those in our virtual Zoom room and those of you watching in on YouTube. You're very welcome to the District 71 International Speech Contest semi-final A. My name is Ciara Clark and I am honoured to serve as the contest chair for today. So we have a wonderful lineup of speeches to get through today, and I have no doubt it will be a wonderful competition. This is the first of two international speech finals. We'll begin shortly with our speeches, and those will be followed by contestant interviews and the announcement of results before we take a short break and return for semi-final B, which will start at 3:45 p.m. So I have briefed all of the contestants on the rules of the contest, and I have confirmed that they are all eligible. The international speech contest will consist of a 5 to 7 minute speech from each contestant on a topic of their choosing. And the timer will indicate using virtual color backgrounds, the green signal at 5 minutes, the yellow signal at 6, and the red at 7. There will be 1 minute of silence between the speakers so the voting judges can complete their forms. Once the last contestant has finished speaking, the judges will complete their ballots and we will do contestant interviews. Chief Judge, could you please confirm that all of the judges have been briefed and are qualified to judge in this contest?
I confirm.
Thank you. Okay, so the order of our contestants was randomly selected before the start of this meeting and is as follows. Contestant 1 will be Darshni Shah. Contestant 2 will be Philip Kanpani. Contestant 3 will be David McRae. Contestant 4 will be Jerry Dunn. Contestant 5 will be Sonia Elston. And contestant 6 will be James McGinty. So that's 1, Darshni Shah, 2, Philip Kanpani, 3, David McRae, 4, Jerry Dunn, 5, Sonia Elston, and 6, James McGinty. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome contestant number 1, Darshni Shah. Darshni, are you there?
I am. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can see you and we can hear you. Can you see the timer okay?
I can, thank you.
And you're comfortable to go? Perfect. So Darshni Shah with a speech entitled Think, Darshni Shah.
You're fat. You're stupid. You're lazy. Contest chair, fellow listeners, fellow thinkers. What would you do if you heard your best friend's partner speak to them like that? Would you stop the conversation? Tell them how demeaning they're being? Would you take your friend aside? Speak to them about the possibly abusive relationship they're in? Think. Have you ever spoken to yourself like that? I have. Today, I'd like to challenge us to change the way we speak to ourselves and just maybe the way we think. If you're like me, you're wondering, is that even possible? I've been living with this inner voice all my life. It's generally served me well, I think. It served our forebears well. When we were hunters and gatherers, dangers lurking everywhere, it stopped us from doing foolish things, like seeing a saber-toothed tiger, going up to it saying, "Nice kitty." But they're just words. How much of an impact can they have? Many researchers have studied this, including Aaliyah Crum, a lead researcher at the Mind Body Institute at Stanford. What resonates with me as a Toastmaster? She's a TEDx speaker. Early in Aaliyah's research career, she spoke with 84 housekeepers across 7 hotel chains throughout the United States. She wanted to assess their fitness levels, so she asked, how much exercise do you get in a day? 2/3 thought they got 0 exercise. You and I both know how much effort it takes to clean the house, top to bottom, just in time for the family visit. Professionals doing this day in and day out didn't think they were getting any exercise. So she took half of them, spent 15 minutes talking to them about the benefits of exercise and how in their jobs they were getting the recommended daily allowance. 15 minutes of changing linen, tucking in sheets, helped them burn 40 calories. 15 minutes of hoovering up everywhere, helped them burn 50 calories. 15 minutes of that dreaded task of cleaning toilets, helped them burn 60 calories. What a bonus! 4 weeks later, she re-interviewed them. The half who'd had that talk had lost weight. They had lower blood pressure and they were happier in their jobs. All because Aaliyah had changed the way they thought and the vocabulary they used to describe their jobs. Words have power. This study must have been percolating in the back of my head as I prepared for my grandparents' visit. My mother's parents. My mother, who we had sadly and suddenly lost many years ago. When we were continents apart, my grandparents were content to be distant loved ones. But when I moved here to the UK, they seemed to shrug off the mantle of grandparents and put on a cloak of quasi-parent. I had moved into a new town and a new house, my palatial 2-bed flat. As the day approached for their visit, I knew I was going to have to clean the house. I changed the linen, tucked in the sheets. I hoovered up everywhere. I even cleaned the toilets. But thanks to Aaliyah's study, rather than thinking of all of those as dreaded chores, I approached them as calorie burning exercise. More importantly, I paid closer attention to that inner voice chittering away. They're not coming to see you. They just happen to be in the neighborhood. You'll never measure up to be their daughter or a replacement thereof. I questioned that pesky voice. Would they come all this way, an hour out of their way? They must really want to see me. They've never compared me to my mom. That's not a comparison that they're making. I know I'm good enough. This conversation helped me understand and realize the intent of their visit. It wasn't an inspection. It was an act of care. It was an act of love. It was a blessing. And in that visit, we formed an even stronger connection. We've seen and illustrated just how the words we use to speak to ourselves have an impact on the way we think, on our bodies, and our relationships. So imagine, if you will, it's Monday morning. You're facing that dreaded project at work. You could wake up and say to yourself, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm going to let my coworkers down. They're going to realize I'm an imposter. I'm going to lose my job. Or you could wake up that same Monday morning and say, I don't know what I'm doing. But I did something similar last year. I'm sure I can bring those skills to this particular project. I've got a Toastmasters mentor who can help me. I've got this. In either situation, Monday morning will come. The project will have to be done. What will you think? Contest chair.
Thank you, Darshni. Timer, can you please give us 1 minute for the judges? Thank you, timer. Okay, please welcome our second contestant, Philip Campani. Philip, we can see you. Can we hear you?
Can you hear me all right now?
We can, surely. Can you see the timer okay?
No. Oh, the timer I have at the top, yeah. I don't have to pin the timer, right. Okay.
Okay, you're happy to go?
Absolutely, yep.
Perfect. So please welcome Philip Campani with a speech entitled 3 Little Steps. 3 Little Steps, Philip Campani.
In a church in Mumbai, one hot and humid Sunday, just as the sermon began, the fans stopped working. Within minutes, everyone was bathed in perspiration, while the priest thundered on about hellfire and the eternal damnation of the wicked. But when the sermon ended, the fans came on again. On the way out, the altar boy whispered to a friend, "Father told me to turn off the fans to focus people's minds on his sermon." Contest chair, ladies and gentlemen. That little event took me back to my last visit to India. And 3 events that took place there that taught me 3 important lessons. 3 small but vital steps to achieving whatever you want. Let me tell you about them. Event number 1. I was in Goa, down near the bottom end of India, where people go for sun, sand and shopping. Their beaches are magnificent. And that's where I was, lounging in endless sunshine, when a man came and sat down beside me. Without preamble, he said, "Do you know the story of the beach and the guru?" I said, "I'm not sure. Tell me." He then told me the popular tale about a young man who asked the guru how he could become successful. You probably know the story. He said the guru told him, "Meet me on the beach tomorrow morning at 4 o'clock. So the young man turned up in his best suit, expecting to receive the secrets of success. But the guru led him into the sea, best suit and all, until the water reached his mouth. He then plunged the young man's head into the water, holding him down for more than a minute before releasing him. And then he asked, "When you were under the water, what did you want more than anything?" And the young man said, "To be able to breathe." And the guru said, "When you want to succeed as much as you had wanted to breathe, that's when you'll be successful." I said I'd heard the story before, but it did make me wonder whether when we want to achieve something, do we always want it enough? I mean, really want it. And so step number 1 was, whatever the objective, you've got to want it enough. Event number 2 was when I spent some money in a shop in North Goa, and the change came to 1 rupee, equivalent to 1 English penny and a little bit more than 1 cent. You know how in Ireland, when the price is something like 10.99, it's always rounded up and no one ever gives you the 1 cent change. So thinking of that 1 rupee change as the equivalent of 1 cent and what it'll buy over here, I said, "Please don't give me 1 rupee. what can I do with it? To me, it was worthless. But that shopkeeper helped me to see it differently. Holding out the coin, he said, with this 1 rupee, you can make a phone call. You can buy any of the sweets in this jar. There are lots of things that you can do with 1 rupee. Accepting the coin, I realized that what I was rejecting as worthless could have value for someone else. And later I would find out how much value. And let's not forget, many achievements are the aggregate of small things, little things that may seem trifling on their own, but which can combine to deliver the result. Even a massive cathedral, for example, could start with a single brick. And so step number 2 was, don't ignore the small things. They could be worth more than you think. Event number 3 was a week later when I was in a taxi on the way to the airport. Stuck in a traffic jam, I noticed a destitute family living on the central reservation under a flyover. The daughter of the family, who may have been 7 or 8 years old, scruffy and unwashed, came and knocked on the window of the taxi, begging for money. I tried to ignore her, because there are beggars everywhere in India. But then she did something smart. She held up 1 finger, pleading for just 1 rupee. That made it easy for me. Fishing out the coin from the previous week, I gave it to her. She almost cried. Because she was desperate, even the coin I rejected as worthless had real value for her. She signaled it could buy her something to eat. Oh, I thought, it's not enough, so I gave her another 50. But she had made it possible she overcame my resistance by asking for something small. And once I'd made that easy decision to give her something, it was a small step to give her more. Isn't that always the way in life? Even in Toastmasters, you start with an easy speech, the humble icebreaker, and that could lead eventually to a DTM. And so starting with something easy was step number 3. Let me summarize those 3 small steps with an action plan to avoid disappointment and improve your chances of achieving your objective. Like that young man standing in the sea, whatever your objective, first, you've got to want it enough. And second, respect the value of small things. And third, start with an achievable goal. That will give you focus, get you started, and build the momentum that you need to achieve your objective. And then, unlike that priest in Mumbai, you won't have to turn off the fans. Contest chair.
Thank you, Philip. Okay, we'll now have a minute's silence for the judges. If you could give us the red light at 1 minute, please, timer. Thank you, timer. Okay, please welcome our 3rd contestant, David McRae. So David, can you speak so we can make sure we can hear you and see you okay?
Testing 1, 2, 3.
Yep, all perfect. And can you see the timer? You're happy with your setup?
I am, thank you.
Perfect. Okay, so please welcome David McRae with a speech entitled Speak Up. Speak Up, David McRae.
Are you friends with a criminal? If you were, would you want to know? Fellow Toastmasters and contest chair, my speech discusses aspects of sexual violence that some members of the audience may find upsetting. I know that this is a difficult topic to listen to, but it's one I think we need to speak up about. The person who taught me to speak up is my friend Sally. I watch a kaleidoscope of emotions play across her face as she tells me about the party. She tells me about the man who walks her home. She tells me about the man who rapes her. David, she finishes, the man was your friend Jack. When Sally has finished speaking up, my stomach is burning with shame. Because if I'm honest with myself, I knew who the man was going to be. Jack was one of my best friends, but I was also aware of a dark side of his character. The times he would explode when he didn't get his own way. The time he suspected he had a sexual infection, but kept on having unprotected sex. The time he slept with my ex-girlfriend behind my back. I knew Jack was capable of rape, but I'd still trusted him as a friend. It made me wonder whether I was part of the problem too. Because Jack was not the only questionable friend I had. There was Alex. Alex would dance with women until they were near a wall or pillar, then place both arms either side, so they were trapped. We used to stand and laugh at this like hyenas. I was one of the hyenas laughing loudest. But I wasn't laughing when my friend Louise told me that Alex had raped her too. I'm not a rapist, but I'm not innocent in this story, am I? I condoned and even encouraged unacceptable behavior in two of my closest friends. And I never spoke up because having them on my side was more important to me than a woman's safety. When I confronted both of them, each just denied it. Neither of them ever have to take responsibility because it's her word versus his. We hear this statistic thrown around about 1 in 10 men being sexual predators. In my social circle, that stat was higher. And I can never shake the fear I'm going to find out another of my friends is a rapist too. These 10% are not faceless demons hiding in the shadows. They are the people we're closest to. If one of our fingers is diseased and rotten, we don't say, it's fine, the other 9 are good. When we ignore the disease, it spreads. For too long, us men have ignored the disease. I asked Sally and Louise, why didn't you tell me about this before? Do you know what both of them said? I was always afraid you'd take his side over mine. Isn't it sad that the women in our lives not only have to watch out for the bad guys, but they don't feel that they can trust the good guys either? It's not the responsibility of women to stop rape. It's the responsibility of men. I should have told Jack that he was not getting informed consent by hiding his sexual infection. I should have pulled Alex away every time he pinned a woman to the wall. I saw the warning signs, but I didn't speak up. Sally and Louise suffered a trauma that maybe I could have prevented. Now they live with that pain. I live with that shame. I haven't spoken to Jack or Alex since I first confronted them. But as far as I'm aware, They're living life as normal. That's an injustice that lights a flame in me, and I hope lights a flame in you too. Every name in this speech is a pseudonym, because these stories are not unique. Jack's and Alex's hurt Sally's and Louise's every day. They push the borders of morality, and if we don't stand up to them, then they will continue to infect our society. I didn't stand up to them, and Sally and Louise paid the price. Maybe like me, you haven't spoken up in the past, but I urge you to speak up in the future. When you hear words or see behavior that make you uncomfortable, speak up. That's the antidote to this disease. The next time you meet a Jack or Alex, think of your mother, your sister, your daughter. They're the ones who suffer when we're silent, but they're the ones that we protect by speaking up. Sally has helped me a lot with this speech, and I want to leave you with her words. When I asked her, "Sally, can I share your story?" she replied, "It won't be comfortable to hear, but it's something that needs to be said." Speaking up against sexual violence is not comfortable, but it's something that needs to be done. Us men have the power to stop these atrocities, but we need to speak up. Contest chair.
Thank you, David. So we'll have a minute's silence for the judges, please. Timer. Thank you, timer. Okay, Jerry, I can see you. Will you just give us a few words so I can make sure we can hear you?
Yes, I can see you too, Kira.
Perfect. Loud and clear. Thank you, Jerry. Okay, please join me in welcoming Jerry Dunn with a speech entitled, "Will the Real You Stand Up?" Will the real you stand up? Jerry Dunn.
When you stand in front of the mirror, who do you see? Is it the real you? Contest chair, imagine you're at the wheel of a huge truck. The road is empty. You're taking in the scenery, the greenery, bouncing along at 50, coming over the hill towards the crossroads. The lights change. You touch the brake. Nothing happens. You press harder, and the massive wheels lock on the shiny road surface. The truck skates and skitters across the highway. You close your eyes and wait for the crash. I was so lucky that day. We came to a stop barely an inch from the barrier. No damage to the truck, but I was a wreck. And when finally the shaking stopped, I managed to turn the truck around and complete my journey. But on the way, shock turned to shame. Company policy required us to report near misses. 1 inch, that's near. As soon as I parked up my truck, Woos 724S, I went to the office to speak to Stuart, the foreman. Stuart, what is it, son? Nothing. Have you ever made a mistake and kept it quiet? Have you ever stayed quiet when you should have spoken? Have you ever stayed down when you should have been standing up? This was my first driving job. I'd spent every penny on a commercial driver's crash course. Who called it that? But within a few weeks, I was driving for national carriers. I had a license, I had a job, and now I had a dirty little secret. And my wife, Marion, wouldn't let me forget. She made a funny poem about it. One day, heading homeward, he found his lorry, it turned itself round. But even so, an annoying voice in my head kept saying, you should have reported that. 2 weeks later, I saw something in the depot that hit me like a punch in the guts. The remains of a truck in the yard, windscreen shattered, frame bent and battered, and hanging by a single screw, the plate. Woos, 724S. That truck! Sure, who was driving 724? Big Mick. Is he okay? He's had some fright, but he'll live. I knew Mick. Decent guy. What happened? Faulty brakes, they're saying. His wheels locked and he slammed into a wall. Shh. That's exactly what happened to me. Nearly. When I had my near collision, I'd felt ashamed. After Mick's real one, I felt guilty. I'd put the poor man's life in danger. Would you have spoken then? Not me. I said nothing. I chose to keep my head down and my dirty little secret. And later, I was full of remorse. I looked myself in the mirror. Is that the real you? I made a promise. In future, the real you will not cover up mistakes. And when the chips are down, the real you will stand up, whatever the cost. Life moved on. I joined a local food company, driving at first, but with prospects for promotion. Robert, the owner, had a fearsome reputation, and he was a hard taskmaster. But we got on. I got on. And quickly rose to a senior position in the company. Robert became a trusted friend as well as a boss. I was well paid. Good times. And then out of the blue, I was called on my promise. Our finance guy, Spreadsheet Mike, we called him, came to me for help. Robert, he wants me to doctor the accounts, make them better than they are. What should I do? I didn't want to believe it, but there was no doubt. And that really annoying voice was back. You made a promise. Well, the chips are down now. For Mick, for Mike, the real you needs to stand up. It was my time to stand up, and I was sure my colleagues would stand with me. I called Robert out for his bad practices. But no one else did. I lost my job and my friend. I still had a young family, but no work, no prospects, and absolutely no chance of a reference. When I stood up, I rocked the boat and I fell overboard. And for a time, I was so far underwater, I didn't know which way was up. My rescuer was the last person I expected. My moody teenage son, Ian. One night I overheard him talking to Marion. Why has Dad lost his job anyway? She told the story far better than I ever could. And his response? I'm really proud of him. Those few words were the life raft that I needed to stay afloat. I'd still lost my job, but I'd found something else. The light in a teenage son's eyes. And I realized that when you stand up for something that matters, you're better than you think. You may lose a friend or a job or something else, but the real you in the mirror is better than you think. The question is, next time the chips are down, will the real you stand up?
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, timer, can we please have a minute silence for the judges, please? Thank you, timer. Okay, Sonia, we can see you. Will you give us a few words to make sure we can also hear you?
I can hear you.
Perfect, loud and clear. And you can see the timer, you're comfortable with your setup?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so please welcome to the virtual stage, Sonia Elston, with a speech entitled Stick in the Mud. Stick in the Mud, Sonia Elston.
In 1967, the Beatles sang, "Will you still need me? Will you still feed me when I'm 64? When they wrote that, they were young men, and 64 must have seemed like a foreign land. I was even younger and had no concept of that great age. Now, sadly, I have surpassed it. But as I sit here nursing my creaking bones, I don't feel sorry for myself, because I'm reminded of a saying that says, "Do not regret growing old. It is a privilege denied to many." Those words have been attributed to many people down the years, but regardless of whoever said them first, they're certainly true. And I count myself lucky. I've lived to see so many wonderful things when so many young lives have been curtailed in their prime. And what wouldn't they have given to be in my shoes? Hand in hand with that is another saying that states, "Your health is your wealth." I've had mostly good health, a few little niggles, but nothing major. My heart goes out to people with chronic illness who wake up to pain each morning. Comedians often joke about age-related things such as hip replacements, when in actual fact they're no laughing matter at all. We're all hastening towards old age, and we can only pray that we'll be spared the many indignities that often come with advancing years. The first time I ever thought about getting older was when I was in my 20s, and my husband and I got a new house mortgage for our new house in Nottingham, and I was told we would pay it off when I was 45. 45? 45? I could never imagine being 45. It seems so old. Now, oh, how I wish I was 45 again. It seems so young. And that was before I got the affliction that has marred my life since it first appeared. I used to love buying shoes. And in those days, I could totter along in high heels with the best of them. You'll never believe it now, but I was very good at ice skating and dancing, and I won a few competitions. Then it all came to an abrupt end when I started falling over. I remember the first time as if it was yesterday. I do a lot of acting, and that year I was at Nottingham Arts Theatre playing the giant's wife in the pantomime Jack and the Beanstalk. I just stepped onto the stage when, wham, I was down. Being a panto, it was easy to cover it up and pretend it was part of the show. But it worried me. And from then on, I started falling 3 or 4 times a week. In desperation, I went to the doctor. She gave me some magic pills and sent me on my merry way. But they made it worse. Instead of falling 3 times, I was falling 6 or more. It's amazing I didn't do any lasting harm. But unless I crashed against something hard, I just picked myself up with only my dignity damaged. Another doctor tried to get to the root of the problem and gave me lots of intelligence tests, such as memorizing numbers and words and shapes. Now, I always hunt out the puzzle pages in the newspaper, so they were right up my street. I love them. And I must have passed with flying colours, because eventually he gave up and said there was nothing wrong with me. So now I've resorted to using a stick to keep myself upright. But thereby holds the rub. It soon became apparent that people began to treat me very differently. I'm often referred to as dearie, and I even wondered if I got the words deaf or mentally challenged tattooed on my forehead, as often people will speak to me very loudly or very slowly, as if I have difficulty understanding or hearing. Well, it's given me a whole new perspective. And I've heard people in wheelchairs being addressed in similar fashion. They may have lost the use of their legs, but not their brains. One only had to marvel at the Paralympics to see how those brave athletes didn't let a little thing like losing a leg or being blind stand in the way of winning medals. But back to myself. I certainly won't be winning any medals, but I'm determined to overcome my difficulties and live this wonderful life to the full as best I can. And don't get me wrong, I know people are being kind when they see the stick, and I'm quite happy to accept any amount of help when negotiating a busy cafe with a loaded tray. But I'm not deaf, and I don't think I'm daft. So, fellow Toastmasters and contest chair, that's my gripe. Call me a stick in the mud if you like, but please don't call me dearie. Thank you.
Thank you, Sonia. Okay, timer, can you please give us 1 minute silence for the judges? Thank you, timer. Okay, James, we can certainly see you. Will you give us a few words to make sure we can also hear you?
Yep, and I can see the timer okay, so we're good to go.
Perfect. Thank you, James. Okay, please welcome to the virtual stage, James McGinty, with a speech entitled, How Lucky Are We? How lucky are we? James McGinty.
Crash! Ah! I plummeted 50 feet to the ground, accompanied by boards, bricks, and steel poles from the scaffolding that had just collapsed with me on it. I was eventually extricated from the rubble and whisked off to hospital. A few hours later, when I woke in my hospital bed, my foreman visited me. God blimey, mate, he was from London. You were lucky. At contest chair, members, guess, I didn't feel lucky. Yes, I'd survived a 50-foot fall with all that rubble and hadn't been killed or even badly injured. But I was in serious pain and discomfort. When I eventually went back to work and the inquiry was completed, the site boss called me into his office and, James, mate, you were just unlucky. It was a loose scaffold clamp that caused it. Was it unlucky? Or was it incompetence on the part of the scaffolder that hadn't tightened the clamp? And how often has someone wished you luck? Before an exam, a driving test, an interview, a promotion board? Do they think you've not done any preparation? or that maybe you're just a bit stupid. No, what they're doing is they are denigrating your hard work, knowledge and experience and replacing it with luck. And yeah, luck plays a part in our lives. Somebody's got to win the lottery. And I bet every one of you has won a raffle prize at some time or another. Because statistically, if you go to enough gatherings and buy enough raffle tickets, you're bound to win a prize. In my case, it's the set of bath bombs from the pound shop, not the ones that go sparkle, fizzle and froth, the ones that turn to sludge in the bottom of the bath. I'm not lucky there. Let's return, though, to that sort of luck that people attribute to your hard work, knowledge and experience. Many years ago, I was IT director of one of the UK's biggest training companies. And I was on the bid writing team for a £2.5 million contract to be delivered at locations across the UK. And I came up with the idea that instead of doing what we'd always done and rented computer equipment locally and sent our engineer out to set it up and do the same site after site after site when the trainer had finished, we instead would set up the equipment in the office and send the trainer out in a van. And he would just plug it in, deliver the training and move to the next location. And it turns out that's what got us the contract. And when the MD announced that we'd won it, our biggest ever, he said, and James was so lucky to come up with that idea. Luck. I sweated buckets over that, several late nights trying to find something different. And in that one painful sentence, he took everything away from me. And he sent me into a downward spiral of self-doubt. Did I get this job through luck? After all, if I hadn't been working on a project with the existing IT manager, I might not have got his job when he left. And if I hadn't got a few years management experience at that company when the incumbent left, I wouldn't have got the director's job. So I went into this horrible process of doubting everything. Imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Did I really get this job just through luck? And then, as luck would have it, I get made redundant due to a downturn in the training industry. And everybody said, that was bad luck, James. And I was inclined to believe them because after all, it wasn't my fault there was a downturn in the training industry. It wasn't my fault that a company that was about to be reduced to 1/10 of its previous size wouldn't need an IT director anymore. Truth be told, if I'd stuck my head above the parapet and did a horizon scan, I would have realised the training industry was in decline and I could have looked for a job elsewhere. I struggled to find work after that. And everybody said, don't worry, James, your luck will change. It didn't. What did change, though, was that my local job centre appointed a work coach for me. And he asked me a brilliant question. James, would you expect to get to London if you boarded the Glasgow train? What a fantastic question. I'd been looking in the wrong place. I was still looking for work in a declining industry. And with his support and my hard work, I found another job in a different industry. It was an entry-level job, but for the 5th time in as many careers, I worked my way up to being a senior manager. Was that luck? No, it wasn't. It was hard work, diligence, experience, and knowledge. And that's my message to you today. Whenever people say to you, that was lucky, whenever They denigrate your hard work, knowledge, and experience and put it down to luck. Look them straight in the eye and just say, it's not luck. Because what you'll find is the harder we work, the luckier we get. Contest you.
Thank you, James. Okay, timer, if you could please give us 1 minute on the clock of silence for the judges. Thank you. Thank you, timer. Okay, so that was our sixth speaker. So I'd now, excuse me, please ask the judges and timers to complete their necessary forms and submit them to the chief judge. And we can all take a big sigh of relief because we got through it without any technical difficulties. And that concludes our international speech contest. And we will announce the results shortly after some interviews with the contestants. But before we do that, please join me in giving a big virtual round of applause to everybody today. Okay, so we're going to do some contestant interviews while the judges are doing their counting. So I'd like to welcome back to the stage our first contestant from today, Darshni Shah. So Darshni, it's lovely to see you again, and you have found a seat, I see, so you're resting your feet. Yeah. So I'm going to take the same approach for all of the interviews. It's going to be table topic style. I'll ask everybody to give us a bit of background on their experience in Toastmasters, which club they're with, and then one question that's unique to you. And our timer will give you the nod at 2 minutes with a red light, just so you know to start wrapping up and finishing speaking. So Darshni, if you could give us a little bit of background on your history in Toastmasters and what club you're a part of. And then my unique question for you is, you told us that one of your greatest accomplishments is learning to drive a manual car in the UK roads. So can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how it was for you?
Thanks so much. Yes, I will definitely tell you a little bit about that. But before I get to that, I've been a Toastmaster. I started out as a Toastmaster in Canada, in Vancouver, probably about 2014, just right at the tail end of that. So it doesn't quite count as a full year. And then I had a bit of a hiatus as I changed countries and got used to the UK, but have rejoined. I'm currently with Cambridge Speakers, a fantastic club, really, really supportive. So it's really nice to be able to be part of that Toastmaster community here and see the similarities across the pond as well. One of the things that we get to learn as we change countries is learning not just a different language, which we'll speak English, but there are so many different terminologies here. It took me about a year to get used to some of them, but also learning how to do the daily things in life, like driving, different side of the road and so on. And for me, it was around a wish, perverse perhaps for some people, to learn how to drive a manual. North Americans, we tend to have automatic cars. They're just normal. And I said, you know what? It's a great opportunity for me to be able to learn how to drive. I know how to drive anyway, so it should be easier. It's a different side of the road. What the heck, will be fun. And as we talked about in the evaluation contest earlier this morning, I'm still learning. I've got my license, don't worry, I do. But I do feel for my driving instructor, I have to say. I signed up with a driving instructor probably for the first time in my life, and thank goodness the poor man had already lost his hair before he met me. He would definitely struggle with that a little bit. But it's been a great joy to learn how to drive a manual. I understand the mechanics of a car just that little bit better as a result of this experience. If you ask my husband, still clueless.
Very good, very good. Yeah, it's always difficult when you have to be on the opposite side of the road. I have done it many times when traveling and driving on the other side of the road, and I think the worst thing is roundabouts. Nothing is worse than roundabouts. Very good. Thank you, Darshini, and very well done today. Okay, please welcome back our second speaker from today, Philip Campani. So Philip, welcome back. We'll take the same approach. So if you could give us a little bit of background on your history in Toastmasters and what club you're a part of. And then my question for you is that you have had lots of success on the Toastmasters stage, but I'd like you to tell me which achievement you're most proud of and why.
Okay, but before I do that, can I just say that halfway through my speech, I got a pop-up on my screen saying the streaming had started, threw me off my stride. I'm mentioning this because it shouldn't happen to somebody else.
Okay, I wasn't aware that that had happened. I'm not sure if there's anything that we can do about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if our
Right,
streamers.
You saw that as well.
Just we had sorry to say we had technical difficulties at that time trying to reconnect the stream. So apologies for the inconvenience.
Yeah, it did throw me off my stride there. Okay.
We never noticed.
Let's go back to your question. I've been in Toastmasters twice. I joined first in 1992 and left in the end of 2001. And then I rejoined when I came to live in Ireland in 2016. I rejoined Toastmasters, partly because I like it and partly because my wife Evelyn is steeped in Toastmastering. And so obviously she would like to go back into Toastmastering, so I said I would join as well. And I joined, I went and tried out a number of different clubs, and I chose Society. I liked it the best. All the others were good too, but there was something about the atmosphere in Society Toastmasters that I really liked. And the current division director, Alan Tracy, was largely responsible for that. I responded well to him, and to a large extent it was because of him that I chose Society rather than some other clubs. Now, which achievement was I most proud of? I should say coming second in the world, but actually it's not that one. It was 12 months after I first joined Toastmasters that I got into the District 71 final for the first time. I hadn't the first idea what it was all about, but I gave a speech that I thought about and cared about a lot. It was really in defense of the underdog. And talking about the underdogs, I said at one point, and what about the Irish football team that Jack Charlton had taken to the World Final? And as soon as I said that, the room erupted. And I realized I had made a connection with the audience. It was in Killiney Castle. And I thought, this is really instructive. And I was delighted to win and go off to Toronto. But it was that particular, it was the fact that I connected by something I said, connected with the audience that really made them respond. And I thought, that's what this speech-making thing is about.
Excellent, very good, Philip. And it's a lovely moment when you feel that connection for the first time. And very well done today. You handled the disruption like a pro. I didn't notice it, so well done. Thank you, Philip. All right, we'll next welcome back David McRae. So David, welcome back. Similar to the others, if you could give us a little bit of history on your background with Toastmasters. And then very interestingly, you told us that your inspiration is a pot of green tea and a techno DJ set. So they're quite the opposite. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, thanks, Kira. Toastmaster for 5.5 years. I'm a member of Central Toastmasters in Glasgow and Linlithgow Toastmasters, both in Scotland, representing Central today. There's a few of us from Central lurking around this weekend, so keep an eye out for us. The green tea and techno. So I've been in a couple of these contests, and you've always got to make up like a new thing that inspires you, don't you? And for me, over the last couple of years, I've started to realize that inspiration is a little bit overrated. Not that inspiration doesn't have its place, and watching amazing speakers and moving films and all of that kind of stuff, but you've got to find that everyday inspiration. And for me, I sit down at 9 o'clock every morning, well, 7:30 at the moment, have my pot of green tea and put on my techno playlist. So the techno playlist is from my younger self, the green tea is from my older self, and they come together. And that's how I start every day. And I don't wait to get inspired to do my work and to follow my passion. I just do those things every morning, and then I get to work. And that for me is everyday inspiration. And that's all I need to sit down and get focused.
So the techno that pumps you up, and the green tea calms you down and focuses you.
Green tea's got a lot of caffeine in it, so actually that pumps me up just as much.
Very good. Well done, David, and very well done on your speech today as well.
Thank you, Kira.
All right, so we'll welcome back our fourth speaker, Jerry Dunn. Jerry, can you turn on your video? There you are. Thank you, Jerry. So similar to the others, Jerry, if you can give us a bit of background on your experience in Toastmasters and what club you're representing today. And then my question for you is, your inspiration is undiscovered talent. So can you tell me about a time where you discovered a talent in someone else, or someone discovered a talent in you?
So, Kira, do you want me to answer the first part first, or the second part second? So I've been in Toastmasters since 2006. I'm a member of 2 or 3 clubs. The club I'm representing today is Toastmasters for Golf. There's a little bit of a clue in the name of that club. And what was the next thing? Inspiration, undiscovered talent. Is that undiscovered talent? Yeah. So, well, the reason I thought of that was really mostly to do with actors, famous actors, who had no notion of it, often from very difficult. I'm thinking of, is it Neil Morrissey, certainly Gregor Fisher. They were both in the care system, and were not particularly academic, but each of them had a teacher that clearly saw something in them. And I think said, you know, we're going to do a play this afternoon. You need to be there. And you know, so and often, it's probably something you've experienced at Toastmasters. Maybe somebody comes along very, very nervous, and you realize that they've actually got a talent they didn't even know they had. So
who discovered your talent?
I was still waiting for somebody to discover my talent.
Very good. Well done, Jerry. I think you displayed your talent in public speaking well today. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jerry. So we'll now welcome back Sonia. So Sonia, you might turn on your video again. Yep, there you are. So welcome back, Sonia. So similar to the others, if you could give us a bit of background on your experience with Toastmasters. And then your favorite quote is, when the great Redeemer comes to write against your name, he'll write not whether you won or lost, but how you played the game. So tell us why that's your favorite quote.
Well, firstly, I'm a member of Tralee Toastmasters in County Kerry, and I've been there for about 6 years. And I turned up one evening, and of course, we have a guest greeter at the door. And the guest greeter was so welcoming that as soon as I walked in, I knew I was amongst friends, and I love it. And I can't wait to get back to face-to-face meetings, because all those people at Tralee Toastmasters are now my friends. Or at least I like to count them as friends. Now, as regards the quote, I like words, and I know a lot of quotes, and that is something that somebody wrote in an old autograph book of mine. I think it might even have been my grandma. And I just think the words are so precious, because when we're judged, if we are judged, I mean, who knows what's going to happen? But if we are, I would like to think that I lived, a good life. And helped others and inspired others. And rather than actually being an outright winner of anything, I have had a bit of success in my life, but I'd rather be judged on my actions than how I'm perceived to other people. And so that was the inspiration behind the quote. And I was looking back in an old autograph book the other day, and there's a lot of little quotes in there which people used to write. I don't know whether they do autographs these days, but there's a lot of little quotes that are really, really true. I mean, as in my speech, I had two quotes. One was, "Do not regret growing older. It is a privilege denied to many." And the other one was, "Your health is your wealth." I'm full of quotes, I'm afraid. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sonia. You can't beat a good quote. A good adage is perfect for inclusion in any speech. Thank you, Sonia, and well done today. Okay, please welcome back James McGinty. So, James, similar to the others, give us a little bit of background of your experience in Toastmasters and which club you belong to. And then my question for you is, I nearly fell off my chair when I read your notable accomplishment of climbing 24 hills in 24 hours. I think it would take me 24 hours to climb one hill up and down. So tell us a little about that experience, what it was like, and are you cheating a little bit? Were they very small hills? Tell us a little bit about that.
Thank you very much indeed, Ciara. Yeah, so I've been in Toastmasters for about 19 years. Having moved around the country a little bit, I've been a member of about 10 different clubs at one time or another. Currently, I'm a member of Central, as David said, and I'm a member of Southside in Glasgow, where I often meet up with Jerry. But this time I'm representing Pegasus Advanced Club, who I think they're in Milton Keynes. I'm not sure. They've never actually met physically because they formed during lockdown, which was really interesting. So been around the block with Toastmasters and absolutely love it. Yeah, as for climbing 24 hills in 24 hours, it was a bet among friends. And there are 20 geeky stuff. Hills in the UK are organised into groups. And there's a group of hills called the Welsh Borders, which are on the English side of the border. And there's 24 that run north to south. And somebody said something about 24 in 24 hours. I'd climbed them all individually before. And I thought, yeah, we can do this. Because some of them actually involved jumping out of my mate's van and running 10 yards to the top. Some of them involved some quite substantial climbing, it has to be said, and some of them were done in the pitch black. And so there was a lot of, I hesitate to use the phrase cheating, but it sounds fair. But yeah, so it did take 24 hours and napping in the van, having snacks, didn't have a proper meal all day. It was really tough going, but it was something to be proud of because as far as I know, nobody had done that before and we managed it with an hour to spare.
Very good. Yeah, certainly a unique accomplishment and one that certainly made me feel a little bit lazy when I read it. So well done and very well done on your speech today. Okay, so that brings our contestant interviews to a close. Before I announce the results, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge all of the people who helped make this competition a success. So a big thank you to our counters, timers, sergeant at arms, judges, chief judge, Zoom masters, organizers, and everybody who helped to make today a big success. So I would just give them a quick round of applause before we announce the results. Okay, so now the moment we've all been waiting for. So we have 3 of our 6 competitors who will go forward to the final. I will announce them in no particular order, and they will go forward to the District 71 final, which will take place next weekend and be broadcast as part of the upcoming conference. So our 3 competitors going forward to the final in no particular order are Philip Canpani, James McGinty, and Jerry Dunn. That's Philip Canpani, James McGinty, and Jerry Dunn. So congratulations to all of our contestants, and especially to our 3 contestants, and wishing you the very best of luck as you go forward to the final. So that concludes International Speech Contest A. We will have a break now, and then we will return for International Speech Contest B, which begins at 3:45. Thank you.